Please make them welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for everybody for making us so welcome. A bit of an old text description. I've got bald head, beard, and about 10 kilos overweight. It's probably more 25, but we're being kind. So I'm a digital product manager for websites and inclusion within the Office for Digital Government, which is part of the Department of Premier and Cabinet, which is part of the South Australian Government. And I will be referring to my notes a lot and looking down, and that's because my mind has been invested in this for a couple of years, so I tend to get bogged down in little details and go off tangents, so I'll stick to script. So the Office for Digital Government is a central agency working across South Australian Government to help agencies develop better digital services. We manage things like sa.gov.au, which is South Australian Government's single entry point website, website as a service to agencies, the SA Government online form platform, and policy development. We also provide support to agencies to help them meet standards such as security and accessibility. The first part of the presentation is about the online accessibility policy and toolkit, and then, if I've got time, cover some of our other approaches and support we offer to agencies. We began the journey about 2 years ago, and the Disability Inclusion Act at that time in South Australia was a case of perfect timing. At the time of being asked to review the old SA.gov website accessibility policy, the Act itself was a bill, and we wanted to take a proactive approach and saw the opportunity to remodel our approach to online accessibility to align with the new Act. We also wanted to do it in a more collaborative way. Our research told us that there's a lot of opportunity to make things better for all Australians. That included people with low literacy, people living in regional and remote communities, people born overseas, the Aboriginal community, people aged over 65, and of course the 1 in 5 Australians living with disability. It's also an opportunity for those who build digital. We knew the SA government policy needed updating to meet usability expectations. No surprises, we know that there's accessibility challenges with many digital properties not being WCAG compliant in government. Even less of a surprise, we know there's usability challenges with many government websites and apps. And that's compounded because many government services are adding digital as a delivery channel by default. As they do that, the digital divide can get bigger, and our key aim was to bridge that digital divide and ensure we're not limiting the potential of those with accessibility needs. We also wanted to link to the new policy with the State Inclusion Plan, which I'm happy to say we have done. To create the new policy, we first had to understand why we're creating it. We conducted over 50 user testing sessions to understand how platforms are being used and their common frustrations. This included visiting people who use assistive technology in their own homes. In-depth surveys gave us a better understanding of the needs, desires and current gaps. We also connected with governments and organisations globally, to understand what was already created. This led to making some great contacts. Bree Norton was on the original working group, Andrew Arch in his roles at DTA and Intopia, the 18F accessibility team in the US, and gov.uk, especially Ben Railton with his commitment to Easy Read, Government of British Columbia, and Andrew at Melbourne Uni, who will hopefully see a lot of influence in our toolkit to what Andrew and his team had been working on there. In co-designing a policy, it was a new approach to policy design for us. It was built on a foundation of feedback from people with lived experience of disability and the networks. The key partners in this along the way, Vision Australia, Royal Society for the Blind and Blind Citizens Australia. SA.gov and Australian government reps, leading accessibility specialists, those who build digital or design with citizens in mind, so those people with a really strong usability focus. And call-outs, especially Tony Starkey and Neil King and his team at Vision Australia as well, who I don't think the toolkit or the policy would have looked as it does without their support. Consultation, this shows how much the consultation reached. 57,339 OZeWAI subscribers. OZeWAI is the South Australian Government's online communication, online consultation website. And if you go back and have a look at the policy when it went out for consultation, what you'll see on there is about 10 comments on the policy. Really the tip of the iceberg. What we got was an avalanche of phone calls, emails, people willing to help and feed into the policy and the resulting toolkit. It was a fantastic experience, and for anybody working with government or who sort of leads government along the way, or who is in government, don't be afraid of putting things out for public consultation. I'm thinking Utopia, Adam sitting at the front here. Some fantastic guidance around the policy and some great input as well. We also reached out to over 1,000 staff with a survey asking them their feedback around the policy, what their barriers were to online accessibility, and what resources they felt they need or support to implement the policy. We engaged with over 600 members from the South Australian disability sector and over 450 members of the South Australian Disability Engagement Group. This included people with lived experience of a disability, family members and their support networks. Also 50 members from the local government access inclusion network. All up, this delivered over 150 unique pieces of feedback that were actually included in the final policy. And that policy got endorsed and mandated in South Australian Government on May the 16th in May the 16th, 2019. The new policy supports international standards, as you'd expect, Australian standards, procurement standards, and applies to all newly created or significantly updated public-facing websites, intranets, public-facing native apps, PDFs, online forms, survey tools, and non-web-based software. Unusually for policy in government, the Office for Digital Government also provide ongoing support for agencies to meet their obligations under the policy, hence my role. One big learning curve for me was EasyRead. And the feedback we got through the public consultation was the policy itself was difficult to read. Surprise, surprise. We like putting out documents that are like that. So we revisited that feedback and we created an EasyRead guide to the policy. We engaged the Information Access Group for that, and the UK Government, Vision Australia and the South Australian Disability Engagement Group were all key partners in developing the HTML web page design. And we know from our analytics, people are now choosing EasyRead over the traditional policy format as a default option to go to. Feedback has been overwhelmingly positive from all levels of government here in Australia about using EasyRead as a way to develop policy by default. So we're investigating that further. And the reason for that, as we all know, people across the board don't have time to read heavy government documents. In Hemingway app, some of you might be familiar with Hemingway, albeit a US reading grade level, and shows the power of putting things into EasyRead. It brought the reading age level down from 14 to 4.5. Really, it was an eye-opener for me, and the feedback I got from across government was, I was expecting people to say, look, your boxes should be on the right, or that sort of thing. The feedback I got was, wow, this is how policy should be developed by default. So out of everything, that was the sort of thing that blew me away a bit. Through our research, we identified people wanted more than just a policy. They wanted to know the how, they wanted it simple, and they wanted it just for them. Other people wanted more in-depth guidance. These were usually people with a good background of online accessibility. And they also wanted to know what training options are available. The clear message we got also is people wanted to contribute, and they wanted a community-driven resource, and they wanted to be part of that. And the page structure of the Online Accessibility Toolkit follows a pretty much the similar format. At the top, and this is the one thing, it's surprising how you can get bogged down in one thing. This is the one thing I got bogged down in, read times at the top of the page. So when you go to the toolkit, you'll see at the top in the Teams area, each page has got read times, whether that's 30 seconds, a minute, or whatever. I agonised over that because I was like, what is an average read time? And are we going to get negative feedback over that? So put it out there. Thought, well, go for it, see what happens. The feedback's been really well, it's been really well received. People know what they're getting into when they go to a page. They don't have to scroll. If it's a minute, they know, well, you know, it's probably more than I want to spend on a government website, but yeah, I'll give it a crack. My favourite bit of why it's important, those real user stories from user testing, from shared resources from the US, the 18F accessibility team over there. The real user stories focus on people with disability, that focus on CEOs of companies, people in a rush, people who've in crisis situations. So really bringing home this good accessibility benefits everyone. Steps to take, we've got videos and guidelines in there, supporting resources, and very importantly, was this page useful? We're always seeking feedback. As I said, it's a community-driven resource, so yeah, I love getting constructive feedback. We can build on that and improve. Oh, and before I forget, the toolkit also aligns with Australian government methodology. What we didn't want South Australia to do is go off on our own and then add another layer of problem to it and complexity where everyone's going off doing their own thing. So we very much back what the Australian government are doing. One really nice sort of thing, we've worked with governments all around the world, and a nice little story. Government of British Columbia just put out their own accessibility inclusion toolkit based on what we did, which we based ours on the 18F accessibility for Teams guide as well, and a few others, Melbourne University. And I'd encourage you to go and have a look at that. Feedback, they're a great team, and like us, they really want it to evolve and be a best practice resource. So yeah, Government of British Columbia. Next, I've just got a 1 minute 40 video, which is a nice explainer of the Online Accessibility Toolkit.
We live in a world where everything is turning digital, from the way you order food, book a car, organise your holiday, or use government services. At the same time, our communities are becoming more and more diverse. We all live in different places and have different backgrounds. We're old, young, live with disability, speak multiple languages, and access online services in different ways, on different devices, from different locations, right around South Australia. The South Australian Government believes digital things like websites and apps should be created with the whole community in mind. That's why we created the Online Accessibility Toolkit. The toolkit is free and publicly available so that everyone can create accessible digital platforms that are easy to navigate and read, work on different devices, and consider good design and colour, ensuring that captions, transcripts and code are built in a way that the 1 in 5 Australians who have a disability can access without disadvantage. Co-designed with over 100 different organisations, including Vision Australia, Royal Society for the Blind SA, and people with a lived experience of disability, the toolkit provides best practice guidelines, easy-to-use checklists and communities to ensure all government, non-for-profit and private enterprise design with accessibility in mind. Everyone has a role to play in creating accessible online solutions, and anyone can contribute by embedding inclusive design into their work. View the Online Accessibility Toolkit at accessibility.sa.gov.au.
So what next? Website design system. The website design system is available to all South Australian government agencies. It evolved from a previous South Australian government offering website as a service. This was developed with Vision Australia, Squiz Australia and Royal Society for the Blind. And we recognised that one of the many barriers for agencies is simply not having the design know-how in-house to create accessible platforms. Our new solution goes a little bit beyond our previous offering of pre-created accessible templates. And the accessibility policy was the key driver in this. Where it's unique is the modules of it are managed centrally, not agency controlled. And accessibility updates are developed, tested and deployed at the top level. They then filter down to all sites instantly. A good example is a pause button on a carousel. Under our old model, our developer had to go into each site individually, fix that issue, move on, go to the next site. Sometimes custom code had been introduced, which added another layer of problem. So that one small fix could have taken a couple of weeks. The new model, as I said, is instantaneous. No complexity, no additional development. It's simple and straightforward. So how are we doing? We've just working through an accessibility audit and remediation. It's underway with existing modules. For new development, we've taken a different approach to the traditional let's get an audit at the end. We actually build in accessibility into the initial scope. We then build, test, fix, deploy and retest. Since December 2019, 36 WCAG 2.0 and 2.1 level AA issues have been resolved and are now live in production, and 8 deployed and in development in our development area this week. So they'll be deployed shortly. And we attack those in sort of sprints and all that sort of stuff. We've just finished procurement on an online forms platform, and we're now providing all agencies with an accessible best practice forms platform. The expectation we'll share these standards publicly shortly. And as a result of the policy development and consultation with agencies, when they're now discussing their accessibility challenges with us as a central point of contact. Our triage service assists agencies by giving them advice or pointing them in the right direction towards experts who can help. And I guess that's really important. We don't overstep our knowledge. We're very comfortable with referring people on so they get the right advice. And more and more community groups are also contacting us as well. To accompany this, we've developed an online accessibility community, which is a community of like-minded digital creators, I guess. You can register at accessibility.sa.gov.au. It's open to everyone. And we do stream that, and we've got a big take-up within federal government who actually attend online. The key aim is linking people together for better collaboration and a coordinated approach to online accessibility. Recognition, government loves recognition, and we've been very, very lucky. The 2019 iAwards I made finalists in a couple of categories there. Human Rights Awards in the government category. Just recently, at the Department of Premier and Cabinet, won some internal awards. The website was approved by the Plain English campaign for an Internet Crystal Mark for accessibility and plain language. And the one I'm most proud of, that's why it's in such a big sort of image there, the Australian Access Awards Accessibility Initiative of the Year on Government website. Really humbling. I was actually, it was the night before I got married, so I was a bit distracted and checking Twitter to see how we went, and don't know how well that went down, but very humbling, very honoured, and thanks to anybody in this room who was nominated or has checked out the toolkit and fed into the toolkit. And I'm getting the hook. So my last slide, there is a case study. Google push and pull why South Australia leads the way in online accessibility, developed and on Vision Australia. A couple of quick thanks. In government, it's very hard to drive positive change from bottom up. So to get top-down support from Nick Condon and Eva van Belonk has really opened the door for this, and it wouldn't have happened without those. And in the case study, again, push and pull why South Australia leads the way in online accessibility, there's a great quote by Tony Starkey, who from Royal Society for the Blind, and as a person with lived experience of disability, which really summarises the work and the impact and the battle that Royal Society for the Blind have had in getting this policy up. So, yeah, thanks everyone. I know I've run out of time, so no time for questions.
I don't think you can get off that easy.
Yeah.
I think we've got time for at least one question. Yes, Erica, your hand was the fastest one to go up.
Well, I missed that last time.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a different question to what I was going to ask last time that never got to it. It's not even a question, and it's not even really for Cliff, but for a lot of people have been talking about co-design and user experiences. If you're looking for a good co-design toolkit and training module, People with Disabilities WA, they have a really good toolkit for this and the training modules that go with it, and they're at pwdwa.org.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'll personally check that out, and we'll link to that in the toolkit as well.
Cliff, just can you pass your team a big thank you? I've just finished with the co-design of the State Disability Plan here in WA, and we grabbed your one and Victoria, and by far the best. We've changed a few things here to suit, same as you.
No, great. Thank you.
Well done. All right, let's a round of applause again. Thank you.